This video is about how to learn to play giant steps. And giant steps is one of the more complicated tunes in the bebop, hard bop genre, with a lot of changes, and it's typically played very fast. The first thing you need to do is listen to John Coltrane's recording, the title album, Giant Steps, to get an idea of what the tune's all about. So what I'm going to explain today is pretty much how Train built his solo on the tune. Now, the first chord of the tune is a B major chord, and that's going to be D flat for you B flat horn players, and it's going to be an A flat. I prefer thinking flats and sharps. A flat for alto players. I'm an alto player, so that's how I think of it. Now he starts his solo on the pickups in the last measure, which is a 2-5-1. If you don't know what a 2-5-1 is, you should probably start with something a little easier than Giant Steps. Autumn Leaves is a great tune with changes. It's a little simpler, moves a little slower, and it's a great tune to start with if you're learning how to play chord changes. But you could start with Giant Steps too, just break it down. If you break it down, break anything down into pieces and make it easy, you can learn it. So, the person who taught me how to play Giant Steps, or how to approach playing Giant Steps, was Jackie McLean. And I studied with him from the time I was 16 until the time I graduated from college. And I developed quite a relationship with him, and he was a major influence on me as a young man. And to quote Jackie and his humor, he said to me, it took me 6 months to learn Giant Steps, and I was in jail. So that will give you an idea of the difficulty of the tune. But if you break it down, it's not so difficult. And the easiest way to break it down is to spell the chords. And when I say spell the chords, we're going to play the first, second, third, and fifth note of each chord. So I'm going to start on that pickup there at the end, on that 2-5, at C sharp minor, F sharp 7, 2-5. And I'm going to spell, let me change position in my head, that chord, right? 1, 2, 3, 5. And then, so, and then I'm going to go through each chord, the B major, the D7, the G major, the B flat 7, and then the E flat. And then there's a turnaround, again, 2-5, A minor 7, D7, and then we do the cycle again, starting on G, B flat 7, E flat major, F sharp 7, B major, then a turnaround to E flat, A minor, D7, G major, C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, B major, F minor, B flat 7, E flat major, and then turn around to the top again. So I'm going to spell through all these chords like that, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5 on every one. And then when there's a chord that takes a whole measure, like those major chords where the pattern resolves for a minute, I'm just going to go like 1, 2, 3, 5, 1. So starting at the pickup, right? like that. And once you can get through the tune spelling the chords like that, you know, you're starting to get somewhere. You're just starting to get those chords under your fingers. So if I pick up the pace a little bit, and so on. Then, when you're comfortable doing that, what I would suggest is that you do it through the keys, so that you learn the song in every key. And that's what a real musician does. A real musician learns it in every key, and forwards and backwards. And then, once they've studied the material, as Sonny Rollins once said, they try to blot out their mind and not think about that on stage, and then they just play. But see, they've prepared themselves beforehand. They've trained their muscle memory. They've trained their ears. Their fingers are ready to go. So when they're on stage and they're in that zone and they're creating, everything's there. Everything's prepared. It's ready for them to draw on. But they're not practicing anymore. They're actually creating. But they're drawing on these things, these devices that they've practiced and worked on. And that's how you learn to play giant steps, is by spelling these chords like this. And, you know, as accurately as possible and cleanly, and then working up the speed, doing it very, very slowly. That's another thing, is practicing very slowly. Practice slowly. Practice so that you can play this in perfect time. Put on a drum machine, put on a metronome if you have to. Keep the speed down. You don't want to practice your mistakes. If you practice too fast, you practice playing mistakes. Practice playing properly. Practice playing with proper breathing and breath support and posture. Practice playing the right notes. Practice playing in tune. And then when you go to perform, you won't have to think of those things. It'll be automatic. This is the whole purpose of practicing. So slowly, go through the chords slowly. And you may start to hear that this pattern is kind of one of the fundamental patterns that Train used to build a solo. If I may quote a little bit of Train's solo, it's been a long time since I transcribed it, so I apologize if it's not 100% accurate. But you know, Train plays. He just spells that last C sharp minor chord. He goes 1, 3, 5, 7, and then down a half step, right? Very common bebop kind of phrase. Then he starts spelling chords. 5, 3, 1. Then 1, 2, 3, 5. Good. Train plays. So anyway, apologies to Train. You see, he's building that chord spelling type of thinking into building his solo. And without going into a total analysis of his solo, you know, minor 7, then 5, 3, 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 5, 3, 1. And then a chromatic from the B flat to the B to the A. Then right down the E flat scale. Alright, up the E flat scale. 5, 3, 1 on that minor chord, the A minor. To the third of the D7 chord. And then he starts on the third, on the G major, on the next sequence. And then the third of the next note. He's inverting the inversions of the chord, right? You have a chord 1, 3, 5, 7. Then you can have 3, 5, 1, 7, or 5, 1, 3. You know, you can invert the chords. But before you can get there, you need to start somewhere. So this 1, 2, 3, 5 pattern is a place to start to get the chords under your fingers. And once you've got that 1, 2, 3, 5 under your fingers, then you can start to play around a little bit with the chromaticism, find the right places for the chromaticism, the chromatic scales, the leading tones, the chromaticism between chords, especially, you know, between a dominant chord and a major chord, where you have a dominant chord that has a potential and energy that wants to go somewhere, wants to go resolve to a nice major chord. You know, in there is where you can slip some of that chromaticism to lead it. You know, you can kind of lead it home, so to speak, into that major chord where it resolves. So anyway, that's the lesson on giant steps, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.